This video is all about getting unstuck, and as I was contemplating what it looks like to get unstuck and what it really takes, a random memory from my childhood popped into my head that I thought would be the perfect metaphor for getting unstuck. And this was a scene from the book Call of the Wild by Jack London that I had read when I was younger. And this is a book about Buck, who is a family dog that suddenly finds himself in the Yukon working as a sled dog with John Thornton, his new handler and owner. And so I'm going to go through this scene and explain it, and then we're going to talk about it and talk about how it's a great metaphor for getting unstuck in life. But first, really quick, hi, I'm Alex. Thanks for checking out the channel and thanks for checking out this video. I hope you find it super helpful in getting unstuck. And with that, let's jump into the scene from the book that is the metaphor for getting unstuck in life. So in this scene, we find Buck and John Thornton just hanging out at the Eldorado Saloon. And the men are sitting around shooting the shit as they do, and one man starts to brag that his dog can pull a sled with 500 pounds.
My skookum could start a sled with 500 pounds.
And then the next man is bragging that, well, his dog can pull a sled with 600 pounds.
I've got a dog, Pete. Could walk away with 600 pounds.
And the next man, of course, says, well, my dog can pull a sled with 700 pounds.
My curly can start 700 pounds.
And John Thornton, hearing all of this, says, well, Buck can pull a sled with 1,000 pounds.
Buck can start 1,000 pounds.
And one of the men in the saloon, Matthewson, decides to call him on that. He says, well, I've got my sled right outside. It's loaded up with 1,000 pounds of flour. Let's see if Buck can really do it. And I'll wager you $1,000 that he can't.
I've got $1,000 that says that he can't.
And so you can get a sense of what this sled is like. The book describes the sled as Matthewson's sled, loaded with 1,000 pounds of flour, had been standing for a couple hours, and in the intense cold, it was 60 below zero, the runners had frozen fast to the hard-packed snow.
That sled's been frozen for 2 hours. Ain't no dog can break it out.
And so here you can see this sled as the metaphor for your life. It's pretty loaded down at this point. It's been sitting for a while. It's quite stuck. The snow and ice have started to build up on the runners. This sled isn't going anywhere without some effort. And so part of the challenge here is not only pulling this 1,000 pound sled forward, but getting it unstuck or broken out from the ice first. So all the occupants of the saloon pile out onto the street. Everyone wants to see what is going to happen. Can Buck really pull this sled? And they had to get the team of 10 dogs that normally pull this sled unhitched, and then they got Buck strapped in, and after a little pep talk from John, Buck was ready to go.
How'd you love me, Buck? How'd you love me?
And so at John's command, Buck first lunges to the right, and the book describes that from under the runners arose a crisp crackling. So then Buck repeats the motion, lunging to the left, and the crackling turned into a snapping, the sled pivoting and the runners slipping and grating several inches side to side. The sled was broken out. So the sled was now unstuck from the ice, and it was ready to be pulled forward. And so from there, the book continues that Buck was able to work on getting the sled started from a standstill. He threw himself forward, and slowly the sled lurched ahead in what appeared a rapid succession of jerks. And gradually the sled gained momentum until it was moving steadily along. And that's paraphrasing from the book, just so that we can kind of get through this scene a little bit faster. But that's the whole story of how Buck got this sled unstuck and moving forward. He first had to lunge to the right, then to the left. Then he had to kind of have a series of jerking motions where the sled wasn't really moving, but slowly it gained momentum and he was able to move forward. So what can we learn from this story, and how is this a metaphor for getting unstuck in your own life? Well, as I said earlier, that sled is your life. You've been stuck for a while. You've been in your same routine, your same career, whatever area of life that you're feeling stuck. You've had a lot of the same going on and not a lot of movement. And that has allowed the snow and ice to build up on your sled runners, and you're quite stuck now. And so what we can learn from this is that sometimes it takes a couple initial movements, that left and right that Buck had to do to get your sled unstuck. And then he had to do a couple of jerks forward that didn't really do that much, but they were actually building momentum and slowly getting the sled moving along. And so there can be this kind of hesitance to take the first step to start getting unstuck in life. And there can also be this focus on finding the right thing. I remember when I was trying to quit my 9-to-5, I was ready to switch careers. I had been stuck in my career for 10 years. And so I was side hustling. That's kind of how I broke my sled out. And so I had tried photography. I had tried an ASMR YouTube channel. I had an Etsy shop. I did a little graphic design. Like I did a whole bunch of things. And it can seem like these things aren't really working. They're not moving me forward, blah, blah, blah. But they were working because they were getting my sled broken out. I was getting unstuck. They were building that initial momentum that eventually was the catalyst for me to quit my 9-to-5 job. And so the lesson here is, if you're hesitant to take those first steps, or you're hesitant, like, will this even work? Will this go anywhere? Don't put so much pressure on it. Try and be a little bit more relaxed and realize that those initial steps aren't meant to move you forward. They're meant to get you unstuck. They're meant to get your sled broken out. And then the steps that you take after that is what builds the momentum and gets you moving forward in life. And if you have this focus on, well, I just need the right thing, I just need to find the exact right thing, and then I'll move ahead with that. Again, there's a little bit of trial and error process. You've been stuck for a while, so you need to just be okay that the first couple things that you choose may not be the exact right thing, but getting you unstuck. They're getting your head in a new headspace where you're willing to try new things. They're getting you into this new headspace where you're starting to see yourself doing something different rather than what you've been doing this whole time. And so you can use that as your motivation to move forward and take a little pressure off whatever it is that you do in those initial first steps, because they're just getting you unstuck and the momentum will build later, even if it looks like they aren't really moving you forward. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's given you a little visual metaphor to think about when you think about getting unstuck in life. Sometimes you have to get your runners unstuck first, and you have to do those first initial movements that don't really budge your sled at all. But with time and with continued effort and persistence, it will start to move forward. You will start to gain that momentum, and suddenly you'll find yourself in a whole new place, in a whole new area of life, and you'll be unstuck from that past that you're hoping to leave behind. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would appreciate that support. And if you like this type of content, then consider subscribing for weekly videos like this. And with that, I will see you next week.